All right. So this was another one that um, the mic wasn't working, so that's great. So here's just the intro that I had before going into Omar's press conference about the George Pickens trade. I talked about how George had his issues on the field and no real issues off the field unless you count being late to games as an off the field. But there's no huge violence or anything like that we ever heard about. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, we just didn't hear about it. But George on the field, he had his antics of when he wouldn't get the ball and have his temper tantrums and then to me being late is more of an on the field issue than it is off the field for whatever reason. Like the Christmas game, I believe it was, he showed up within 90 minutes of kickoff, and that's after they announced who the inactives were. So he was late, and he probably got fined for it. I think he's been fined 10 times in the league in his 3 years, which is insane. And he's, whether it's fighting or like he grabbed Jordan Lewis by the face mask and ripped him down at the end of the Cowboys game. He tackled, who was it? Because Jeremy Chin picked off the football against the Commanders, and George tackled the other guy. I don't know if it was Sanderstill or whoever it was, but he tackles the other guy. He just has his antics on the field, and Dallas trades for him. Dallas also earlier this offseason traded for Joe Milton. And Joe, one of the big reasons, I guess, New England traded him was that he felt like he should have been the starter, not Drake May. So that's where New England has to cut bait because they don't want that distraction in the locker room. Because if Joe feels like he should be the starter, he's not going to do his job as the backup, I feel like, of getting Drake ready to start. Because that's the backup job. You're trying to help the starter get ready. So they had to ship him off to Dallas. Now, Dallas has two guys, and who knows? I don't know if he feels like he should start over Dak. I mean, but you have two guys who are who have on the field, maybe in the locker room issues. Neither one's like an off the field, drugs, violence, anything like that. But if they're going to be a problem in your locker room, or if they're going to be a problem on the field, maybe that's what Dallas wants because it's attention. I couldn't tell you, but it's not typically good for a locker room to have guys like that.
Thanks, guys. I don't normally speak around this time, but I figured I'd answer some questions. With the trade, it sort of happened quickly. We had some people inquire during the draft, nothing that really made sense, and Cowboys reached out. I don't really remember what day it was, but earlier this week, and they gave us they proposed something that for us to think about, and we had conversations internally. I also had some conversations with George's agent, Dave, who I have a good relationship with, and we discussed where things, I guess, have been with George, where they are, and where things could go with George, and this trade made sense for everyone. But here we are, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Did he want to leave?
He never asked. If you're asking on, I was never asked to. I was never told that he wanted to leave. No.
Omar, you guys have been pretty supportive of him throughout his 3 years here. How did you get to the point where him going somewhere else turned out to be the best course of action?
No, we just kind of talked about it. Lots of serious conversation, honest conversations, and we just felt that a fresh start for both sides was the right thing.
Were those conversations about a potential extension? Were you negotiating with him for an extension?
We don't talk about negotiations. We just felt it was a time for a fresh start.
Omar, is it obvious to say that draft picks are harder to come by, more valuable before the draft than after?
It's a good question. Like for me, those draft picks are valuable no matter what. But yeah, when you get to the, I think this is what you're asking, Jim. But I think when you're the day of the draft or you're going through the draft, like every one of those picks feels like they're the greatest pick. That you don't want to get rid of them or they're valuable. But I mean, they're all important.
How do you view it as a disappointment that it didn't work out, or do you just move on and say we got that third round pick, let's just move on? How does the organization feel?
I wouldn't use the word disappointment. We had 3 years with George, and we had some exciting times. But it was just time for the fresh start for both sides was the right thing.
How does this impact this team this year? And how do
Yeah.
you feel about the depth of receiver?
We wouldn't have done this if we didn't feel good about this receiver situation, about our depth here. I know people make the comparison about last year. It's not even close to being the same.
What's the difference?
Well, obviously we made the investment with DK. We've had another year with some of the young guys and gotten to know them, watch them develop. We had a Robert Woods. Like I said, we've had Roman's healthy. I've seen him the last couple weeks out here and how he's doing. And we saw how he was progressing at the end of last year. Obviously, he didn't get the chance to to get on the field, but there was some excitement there. But we have a good group. There's some guys that are back. And we've seen their growth and have another year under our belt with them and feel good about it.
Is there a potential pool that's more easily accessible for veterans in free agency as opposed to where you were a year ago too? Because it felt like last year when all those names were being bandied about, there were potential trades. Whereas do you have a wider pool that maybe you can pick from in free agency this year that could backfill?
You mean right now as we sit here today? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I'll say this. If there's an opportunity to add a playmaker or an offense, regardless of whether it's a receiver or wherever it is, we're going to look into it. And, if it makes sense, it makes sense. But, there's always good players available. And, I mean, that's an interesting question. There's good players out there. If we wanted to add some people, we could. But, we feel comfortable with them.
Has there been an outright in terms of acquiring draft capital for next year? Was that an objective that you aggressively been trying to do, or in terms of the compensatory picks and things like that?
Yeah, I'll say, this year we were in a position where enjoying, how should I say this? It was important for us to acknowledge the fact that we could be in a position to acquire comp picks next year. You guys saw how we did things in the offseason. That's obviously something that was on the back of our minds when we made decisions. And we'll see how it all shakes out. The next phase of this is how much these guys play to determine where those comp picks end up. But that's something we were, obviously cognizant of.
So did that play a role in why you didn't trade on draft weekend and get picked for this year?
What do you mean? Say it again.
The next year's draft pick and what you just said,
Yeah.
that it played a role. You didn't make the trade on draft weekend because
Yeah.
of that?
No, it's not. It wasn't. A trade that was interesting to us was not there draft weekend. Teams called, and they, a lot of times you just talk in hypotheticals, and people say, "Hey, would you do X, Y, or Z?" And most of the time the answer is no, and there was just nothing there that was worth, discussing.
At owners' meetings, maybe elsewhere, you guys sounded pretty excited about DK and George, the schematic challenges that could prevent the defenses. What changed between now and Wednesday?
Yeah, it's just, I guess we had a team that called and, gave us something worth thinking about. And, we had the conversations. And like I said, we we talked about, where we've been and where we are, where we could be. It just made sense that a fresh start was a good idea.
And I know the business
Guys,
aspect.
2 more.
I know the business aspect always comes in with guys in the last year of their
Yeah.
deal, whether they're younger or older. I mean, do you guys think there was a chance he was going to do the hold-in type thing at training camp and all of that stuff?
It's a hypothetical. I don't know where that would have gone.
Last one here, last one.
Does the track record that you guys have had of recent trading away of receivers that you guys have drafted, does that impact any vision for how you guys want to assemble your talent or the type of players you want to bring into your organization and moving forward?
No, I mean, some of that's just really coincidence how it's played out with the position. I mean, we're always trying to get good players regardless of what position it's at and at any point in the year. So, I think there's some coincidence to that. But we want to get good players, good people, and, we're chasing a championship. And every decision we make is based on trying to win a championship, not only, in the future, but this year. I mean, we're focused on trying to win a championship this year. And, I know there's a lot of questions about different things, but there's a lot of time between now and the start of the season. And but rest assured, we're trying to win a championship this year.
So some of what Omar said in here is kind of what I've said, where just because you traded George away does not mean you can't go get a receiver, either a free agent or trade for someone. Houston, do they really need Christian Kirk after drafting both Iowa State receivers? Maybe not. Amari Cooper's a free agent. Keenan Allen is a free agent. If the Steelers go get Aaron Rodgers, does he want Allen Lazard? So maybe you go trade for Allen Lazard. I know Gabe Davis was released by the Jaguars. There's definitely some guys out there still that you could either trade for or that you could go sign. Now, some guys you might be waiting to trade for if it's financially beneficial to the team they're currently on to wait until June 1st to trade that player. That way, any cap hits, they can split up between the 25 season and the 26 season. Because not everyone has tons of cap space at this point in the year. Steelers are lucky to have $35 million in cap right now. So whatever Aaron ends up costing, whatever a wide receiver would cost, do you have to restructure? Because if they were to sign, say, TJ Watt to an extension, that's going to lower his cap hit for this year. So right now they're at 35. They have ways to get more cap space if they absolutely had to, but we'll see if they need to or not. And then right now where they're at with their wide receiver depth, he says he's comfortable with it, and they wouldn't have made the trade if they weren't comfortable with their depth. Though I don't want to go into the season with this wide receiver room. Whether it's trading for a guy, signing a guy, this would be the absolute last resort, is cut downs. If a veteran's about to get cut, offer a 7th round pick. That way you make sure you get that guy. Or, if someone is cut by a team and you want him. There's different ways to add to the room now and in the future. I'm not in favor of waiting until cut downs or just before cut downs. And that is because at that point, that guy doesn't know your playbook. If you get a guy now or in the near future, within the first couple of weeks, or the next couple of weeks, he still has anything like mandatory minicamp. Maybe he'll, if that's still going on, maybe OTAs. he would have training camp at that point, the preseason games. He has all that time to try to learn the playbook. So that's just where I'm at. I still want to make a move somewhere, and just because they traded George doesn't mean they can't. They can always make a move. Whether it's signing someone or trading for someone. And as far as signing someone goes, the comp pick formulas are all done. They can sign anyone they want, and it won't hurt their comp picks. I think the only guy it would hurt their comp picks is J.K. Dobbins. The Chargers placed a tag on him, and I'm trying to remember the name of the tag, but basically it's I think it's a 1-year deal for like $5 million, and it guarantees him that's essentially an offer is what it is. So he's guaranteed if he doesn't sign with anyone else, he can sign that and he'll be a Charger again. Now, could the Chargers rescind that? Yeah, maybe. But right now he's essentially guaranteed a contract with the Chargers. And if a team chooses to sign him, then it helps the Chargers' comp pick formula and hurts that team's. The Browns did the same thing with Elijah Moore. So the Bills signed him. So that actually hurt the Bills' comp picks and helped the Browns' comp picks. It's not used often, but it was used at least twice that I know of. So, but yeah, a lot of what Omar said is what I've said, which you gotta wait, you gotta be patient. And they obviously did this for a reason. They didn't do it during the draft because they didn't have a trade package that they were okay with. And it's as simple as that. And maybe, they talked with Dallas, and Dallas didn't want to give up their third this past draft, because then they would have selected in the first and second round, and they wouldn't have selected again until the 5th round. And they didn't want that big of a gap. That's very well possible too. So now that it's after the draft, and Dallas is like, okay, now we're willing to give up a third because we'll go 1, 2, 4. And I don't think Dallas has any 3rd round comp picks coming their way. But that's the thing, is now you can go 1, 2, 4 instead of 1, 2, 5. There's so many different things that play a part in when and why teams make trades. So that is it for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.